Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namah. So, again, good morning, Pranam, welcome to all of you. And as I mentioned yesterday, today we are continuing for a few minutes, not so long, with my book launch from yesterday, whose streaming was interrupted unexpectedly by some electricity cut, basically, which in itself was an interesting message to embrace the unknown, to see what shines in the darkness. Many were saying, I'm seeing everything dark during the streaming. So it's part of the content of the book has to do with learning to coexist with uncertainty and those situations that go beyond our control. And this was clearly Krishna's hand behind that, because there was an electricity cut. I was staying doing the streaming in the house of an electrician, in whose house never the electricity went out for years that he lived there. So it was clearly Krishna's hand there. So maybe among other purposes, Krishna wanted me to extend the book launch till the day of today, which is, yesterday we connected the celebration with Gadadhar Pandit's disappearance day, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's disappearance day, and Gundicha Marjan Leela, but probably Krishna wanted us to extend the book launch up to today, in which we are celebrating Sri Rath Yatra. Sri Aganath Dev Ki Jai. So yesterday I was briefly explaining a brief recap why the book launch was on those three festivities, Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Gadadhar Pandit's Tirobab Mahotsav and Gundicha Marjan Leela. And then we shared a few words on how this particular book, Radical Personalism, that we are continuing to launch today, how this book came to happen with all its unexpected tectonic shifts. And then we proceeded yesterday to make a brief review of the different sections of the book. Yesterday we shared a summary of the introduction of the book, of the first, second, and third part of the book, including its 14 chapters. And when we started to conclude yesterday's book launch while sharing a few words on the conclusion section, that's when electricity went off. So almost the main part was shared yesterday, but nonetheless, I wanted to make full circle and conclude the presentation. So since the streaming was interrupted while I was reading from the conclusion section yesterday, I'll continue today reading from that particular section, along with a few closing points that I wanted to share yesterday, but I will share today. So the conclusion of the book Radical Personalism is called Reclaiming Our Gaudiya Project. And this section somehow wraps up the whole content of the book. So let's conclude by sharing that. As I say yesterday, there are many few subsections of in this conclusion section. And I will read from a section called A New Version of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So I will read two paragraphs, separate, but appear in the same subsection as follows. If we don't feel identified with the current state of affairs in the Gaudiya community, it is then time for a new version of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. In some cases, this new version will emerge after articulating those specific circumstances that beg for an upgrade, while in other cases we will have to deeply ponder what we can do about it. We should pay close attention, focus on our surroundings, inner and outer, and notice what actually bothers and concerns us, and then do something about it. In other words, each of us needs to ask ourselves what bothers us, then question if that is something we can fix, and then inquire if we are willing to do the fixing. If our answer to any of those questions is no, then we should aim elsewhere, probably lower, until we find something that bothers us that we can fix and that we will fix. And then we should go and fix it. That might be enough for the day. Conversely, by not taking the initiative, we remain as passive, inert consumers of a mere product, not active participants in a living school. But this we should remember. Being committed to nothing and staying on the fence is the worst of all transgressions. Therefore, if we are bothered by some issues in the present Gaudiya community, It doesn't mean that our only option is to abandon Gaudiya Vaishnavism altogether. We can leave our current form of it and embrace a better version, one that allows and even encourages the growth we desire and need. In other words, what we may possibly need is a change of phase, not a change of religion, an upcycling rather than a discarding. What we may possibly need is not to leave Gaudiya Vaishnavism, but rather to discard all of the layers of immaturity, narrow mindedness, and superficiality through which we continue to approach our own tradition. What we may need is not to leave Gaudiya Vaishnavism, but to transform its early stages and our preconceived ideas of it into a more mature way of being a Gaudiya, one that corresponds with our present thirst. That's the new version of Gaudiya Vaishnavism we are talking about here, whatever that new version will be for each of us. So that's a few words that I wanted to share yesterday, but by Krishna's arrangement, we are sharing it today from the conclusion section. And with that, I close that section, and I would like just to share a few more concluding words before concluding, so to say. Sorry for repeating that word so much, this book launch. So that's it. This is Radical Personalism, Revival Manifesto for Proactive Devotion, which has been launched between yesterday and today, finally, fully. And it's ready in Amazon in both softbound and hardbound versions, as well as in electronic format, Kindle version. The links are in the description to the video, how you can get it. And also, I will invite all of the ones who feel inspired to do so to write a brief review of the book after you have gone through it, if you would like. That will go to Amazon. There is a share link in the description as well, how to do so. Since the more reviews the book receives, also the book will be better positioned in the Amazon search option for other people to find it. So you are invited to write your review as well. And also, if some of you may feel inspiration to share some copies of the book with some friends and would like to get a bigger amount of books for yourself, you can contact me personally, and we can get a better wholesale price for those who will like it, both with the first book as well as my second book, as well as my first book, Inherent or Inherited, both of which are in the way of being translated into Spanish. So in a few days, I'll be starting a tour, officially starting a tour for presenting Radical Personalism. I'm going to Alacha next week, and then continuing in the US for almost 3 months, I will say, not only in Alacha, but also going to Denver, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, California, and then going to Europe, Sweden, France, Switzerland, UK, India, New Zealand, and whatever Krishna has in his agenda. So hope to see you there. And also, whenever I will be going to my tour in presence, I'll be getting some books for those who would like to get them at that point. And also a few announcements before finishing in connection to the publication of this book. One of those is that some of you know already, we have been inaugurating a Facebook group called Gaudiya Reform Forum. Here's the name for those of you who will like, where we will be attempting, or we are already attempting, to create a sacred space, sacred online space, and a platform, as the name of the group says, for further reflection about the contents of radical personalism, for further dialogue and healing in whatever needs to be healed on both individual and communal level. So for those who would like to join this group, you will find the link in the description of this video as well. Another option is you can just put Gaudiya Reform Forum in the search option in YouTube. So that's another news we want to share today. And one final news that have not happened yet, but will happen very soon, is that as another way of continuing reflecting and ruminating on the context of radical personalism, whether the series, the book, what we are sharing in the Facebook group, Gaudiya Reform Forum, in complement to that, to all this, we will be starting in a few weeks, starting in July, a series of podcasts in English I'm officially also announcing it today. The name of the podcast will be the Free Radical Podcast. And there will be further exploring the contents of radical personalism, with other friends, other brothers, sisters, kindred spirits that I will be having conversations with. Especially, we'll be going through the different points of the second chapter of, sorry, the second part of my book, the manifesto in itself, which has many radicals, as I said yesterday, which is a section that we have not addressed so much in detail in my radical personalism series of lectures. So that will be one of the main topics in our new podcast, the Free Radical podcast. So the first episode of this podcast will be basically me introducing the concept and the idea behind the podcast and an explanation of the title of it as well. And that will be streamed on July 1st. So I'll be sharing a flyer in these days for you to know where, how to join. And after that initial podcast, episode number 0, so to say, the idea is that we will have ideally one podcast every week with another guest. So more news about that will come very soon. So that's it basically for today. Thank you so much for your time, for your support, for your attention. Please share your blessings and prayers and well wishes. So whatever we may be trying to share is in the service of the Gaudia community, with humility and with sincerity, in trying to address a necessity of serving and being thoroughly identified with it. So hope to see you soon, whether in my US tour or other places, or online in the Facebook group, or in the new podcast that we'll be starting, or we'll meet each other in the pages of the book that we have launched yesterday and today. So see you very soon. Thank you so much. Good Haribo.